Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another very exciting Resolve It in 30, where you bring the questions and we bring the answers. Today, I'm especially excited to talk about, or have our guest talk about, a very, very, very exciting opportunity for government contracting relative to being able to get in there and figure out what's going on and get some of this money that's sitting on the table across the board. So this afternoon, what we have is our topic, like I said, is going to be just a quick intro to government contracting. And why is it quick? Well, not because we only have 30 minutes, but because we're going to be following up with PTAC, and we'll talk about what PTAC is in a second, and doing workshops in the latter part of this year. So I will follow back up with you in terms of when those are going to be, and you can also check our website. With me today is Jael Thatcher, our super duper program coordinator. And of course, I'm Kieran O'Connell. Should you need to get in touch with me, please do get in touch with me. It's kO'Connell@gphcc.org. We are available for you for at any point, at any time, for any reason. So please avail yourselves. In the next 30 minutes, obviously, we're going to have some content presented by our guest, who I'll introduce in 1 second. At any point, if you have questions, put them in the chat box. We'd love to have those. We'll also have a chance at the end to really have a discussion should you want to do that. I remind you all to please mute your microphone, okay? You can use the chat box first, and then we can have Q&A at the end. Without ado, let me introduce our guest speaker for today. Our guest speaker is Josh Kovitz. Josh is the program manager of PTAC. And what does PTAC stand for? Well, he's going to tell you in a second, but to spare you the dreaded consternation of wondering what it is, PTAC is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and it is funded by the state of Pennsylvania. So without ado, let me turn it over to Josh Kovitz. Josh, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me today. Hope everyone's having a great week. It's Friday. It's been a long week. And I'm happy to be here now, share some quick tips and information about government contracting, what it looks like, and how it can help you. I'm Josh Kovitz. I'm the program manager here at the Southeast PA PTAC. And in case you're wondering, what is a PTAC? Well, we are the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and we are funded through a grant from the Defense Logistics Agency. And you might be wondering, well, why does the Department of Defense fund a program like the PTAC? And we'll be getting to that a little bit later. There are about 100 PTACs all across the country and 12 centers in Pennsylvania. And the Southeast PA PTAC has 3 centers. We are located at Lehigh University, Widener University, and Kutztown University. When the pandemic is over and in-person client meetings become a thing again, we will have an office at the Navy Yard right outside of the city. Should be pretty convenient for most of you. We also have space available at Customers Bank downtown Philly. Unfortunately, we will not be able to reimburse parking expenses. So if you're successful enough in your business that you can afford to park in downtown, you probably in a good place for government contracting. So we'll keep that in mind. But again, the Navy Yard is where our official Philadelphia office will be located. So next slide, please. So if you're here, you've already probably decided that you want to work with the government, or at the very least, you're interested in learning more. So what I did here, I narrowed down the top 5 things that you should know to better decide if government contracting is right for you. Number 1, keep in mind that the government buys just about anything, everything, literally. We think of the most common enterprises being construction services or construction materials being top purchases, and that need to keep infrastructure updated. So if you're in like the transportation field or construction field. There's always going to be a multitude of opportunities. Same thing with technology. Technology is something that, you know, it always needs to be upgraded. And, you know, there's always going to be that rapid rate in advancement. So any of those fields, you're going to see a lot of consistency in the opportunities. And if you're not in those fields, well, it's not the end of the world, but we can show you how to find those opportunities that might be a little bit more obscure that you may not have ever even thought about the government purchasing. Another factor to consider is the agency doing the purchasing, who buys what and why. I mentioned that PTACs are funded by the Defense Logistics Agency, excuse me, and through the Department of Defense. The reason for that is the Department of Defense is actually the largest spender of any government entity. And government contracting is a notoriously difficult to navigate. And the PTAC program was established specifically to help small businesses do business with the federal government, and by proxy also state and local agencies as well. So it's not just limited to the Department of Defense, even though that's where the primary funding source is coming from. For example, like we would also connect you with opportunity, like say from the Department of Interiors, where they might be looking for landscapers, fencing companies, janitorial companies. There's going to be a lot of consistent opportunities with agencies like that. So what we can help you do, and what I'll get into a little bit later, is how to find these opportunities. But jumping back here to what you need to know, things that affect government buying habits would be like the policies. And policies are guided by budgets and outside factors like elections and pandemics. And that's not something that we at the PTAC or you as an entrepreneur really have any control over, but it's something that we always need to be aware of, and we can try to predict what policies will be and what budgets will be, and kind of position ourselves to capitalize on opportunities that are coming up. And when we're looking at that, there's different levels of government, like local, state, and federal, and they each have their own procurement system, and they each have their own set of requirements and their own set of goals. So you kind of have to look at each agency and determine if you have the ability to meet their needs. One of the ways that we can do that is look through the past contracting data. And all of this information is publicly available because this is taxpayer money being spent. And we can show you at the PTAC how to mine this data and extrapolate things that are relevant to you. I think that's actually one of the more important things we do here for our clients. Another important thing is we also can talk about networking strategies. You know, it's something that everyone needs to do, and a lot of times we underestimate the amount of time and the amount of work that it takes, you know, to do this network. And it could be anything from sending that capability statement to a prime contractor or a contracting officer, or attending matchmaker events, or just reaching out to who you know and who's in your network, like on LinkedIn or through other social media profiles. You want to leverage your presence the best you can. So that's the last thing on here is actually the set asides, which I'll get into on the next slide. So Next slide, please. All right. Deeper look at set-asides. What I always stress to clients, and especially small diverse businesses, is that the government has goals that they want to make for selling to small businesses, and specifically small disadvantaged businesses. And again, these are their goals. They're not really quotas. And 20 years ago, 10 years ago even, the government did a pretty horrible job of hitting these goals. And as time's gone on, they've been getting closer and closer to hitting these goals. But as you can see the breakdown here, the main goal is 26% of all the money that the government spends should go to small businesses. And how do they do that? Well, they do that by small business set-aside contracts. And how they do this is they evaluate the contract and decide that would a small business with the average resources that a small business has be able to successfully complete this contract on their own? And if the answer is yes, well, that contract becomes a set-aside, meaning it cannot be bid on by large businesses. Your Lockheed Martin, your Boeing, they're not eligible for small business set-asides. So if you fall into a category for a certification, like if you're a woman-owned small business or a minority-owned small business or a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, there are separate buckets that these contracts fall into, and like 5% of the 26% would be set aside for woman-owned small businesses. There's a little asterisk there because only certain categories of contracts by NAICS codes are set aside for women-owned small businesses. Like, for example, women aren't really the minority, right? I think there's more women than men in the country now, but women are historically underrepresented in certain industries, and the federal government would classify that as women-owned businesses operating under certain NAICS codes. So women-owned set-asides are only available in certain NAICS codes, but that is a whole other hour-long webinar. So I'm not going to get into that too much right now. Same thing with the veteran-owned and the VA. That's for another presentation.
Josh, excuse me, Josh, before we get to the next slide with about 13 minutes left, what's really interesting when we take a look at this slides on the set-asides is that of the millions and billions of dollars that's out there, okay, 26% of those dollars, relatively speaking, on a local, state, and national level, are set aside, for the small businesses, and then obviously the certified, some of the certifications kind of fall out of that as well. That's a ton of money. That's a ton of money. Okay, and that's sitting on the table and it's collecting dust. All right, and it sounds to me like the one of the great things about PTAC is you're not going to go and do this for somebody, but you're going to point them in the direction of what their services are, where they could go to get these federal contracts or these contracts across the board and help them.
Exactly. And like our performance metric at the PTAC from the DLA asks us, okay, Josh, how many of your clients won government contracts last year? They don't care if that contract was $100, if it was $1,000, if it was $25 million. We will treat any client the same, whether, the definition of a small business is 100 employees or less for manufacturing. It's 38 million or less average revenue. So you might say, well, that's a small business. Well, in the eyes of the federal government, it is. But to you, whether you are, a small business with 3 employees, you are of the same importance to the PTAC as a client as any other business. And I think
Right.
that's one of the most important things we do is we try to level the playing field.
Right. And I think, Josh, you said it beautifully. And then again, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. You said it right there. You level the playing field. Okay. And
Well, we try. I don't know if we've successfully done that yet.
but it makes a hill that seems like an ungodly mountain. It makes it seem like, okay, I just got to tighten my boots a little bit more and it's accessible. Yep.
That is true. And these certifications, they can be so difficult to obtain.
Right.
I mean, I worked with a veteran in the past, and all he wanted was a service disabled veteran owned business certification. It took 22 months, but we finally saw him get his certification. And that obviously, that's not typical. I'm not saying that to scare you, but it's there's always documentation required. And once again, that's we have other hour-long webinars on each individual certification.
Okay.
So I won't get into that too much right now in the interest of time. But so I guess if we're ready to move on to the next slide, we can talk about what you need to work with the government. And in the interest of time, I'm going to go a little bit fast here, but basically you need a past history. If you're planning on starting a business and going right after a government contract, it's not a complete deal breaker, but generally a government agency is going to want to see some past performance, some history in the private sector, that you have employees already working for you, that you have revenue being brought in the private sector. They want to have confidence that you'll be able to fulfill the contract, not that you'll be able to hire 3 more people to perform on this contract. Like, they want to see you already have the employees, that you're already performing similar work. So if you're an established business, and I alluded to this before, and I don't want to go too far into the weeds here with NAICS codes and product service codes. Basically, that's just how the government categorizes what they buy, whether it's a product or a service. And step 1 in the process is identifying what NAICS codes do you operate under, what product service codes are relevant to your business. And these are what you'll use to go and find contracting opportunities. And we can help you at the PTAC. We would help you identify what are your codes. And that's kind of like step 1 in the process.
Josh, one of the easy things in terms of the codes across the board is however you have filed your taxes, bingo, they're right on page 1. So especially if you're a Schedule C filer, it's all over the place. So anybody who's got that's a simple thing right there, for our listeners.
I did not even think of that. It's been I spent too long at the university, and it's been too long since I filled out Schedule C. So, so the next thing you'll need is a DUNS number from Dun & Bradstreet, and there's another asterisk here because it's in the process of being phased out, and there's going to be a new system in place, and it's supposed to be phased out already. But if you go to sam.gov and click on register an entity, they'll still ask you for a DUNS number. And a DUNS number is free. You just request one from Dun & Bradstreet and they give it to you. So as of right now, sam.gov is still using DUNS numbers. And once you have that DUNS number, you go to sam.gov, it's the System of Awards Management. And basically that's a huge database for the government of everyone that they pay for any reason. If you are getting paid by a government entity, you're probably going to have to be registered in SAM. And we can help you with that registration. We can show you how to get information out of SAM about large prime contractors that may be interested in working with you as a subcontractor. And again, primes and subcontractors, that's a whole other webinar scheduled for a later date. And one thing I wanted to touch on, the SAM registration, it's linked to DSBS with the SBA, which is the Dynamic Small Business Search Profile. And you'll be prompted to fill it out when you're doing your SAM registration. And a lot of people leave it blank. And I advise you not to do that. I advise you to fill it out because as soon as you're registered in SAM, you have a profile on DSBS. And if it's empty and a potential contracting officer or a program manager from a prime contractor searches your business, you don't want them to see a blank profile. So that's my little speech on DSBS and why you need it.
Josh, let me just interrupt you here with the 5 minutes left that we have. I don't want people to think that that's a difficult process. That's a really simple process. And the reason that I know that is I walked one of our members through this process earlier this year, okay? And it's really, really simple, folks, as Josh is saying. It's sam.gov, okay? And it's it's one of the more intuitive government interactions I've ever had in my life, which was really kind of nice. But all of that showed up. He got his duns, boom, off to the races. So it's very, very simple.
And if you, I always caution, I never say anything is simple.
Sorry.
Just no, you can say it. And I just don't like, because it's technically one of the things that PTAC does is we help with these registrations. And I don't like it when people say, Josh, you said this was going to be easy. And there's a problem with a DUNS number, or there's a problem with a cage code. But anyway, in the interest of time, I'm just going to mention for capability statements, we have a workshop coming up that Dominique is leading, our assistant program manager, on the 24th of this month. So please join us if you can for a capability statement tutorial. And also accounting requirements, CMMC cybersecurity requirements. They are separate webinars that we'll talk about at another time. So let's just go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. Secrets that you need to know. The government likes to work with the same businesses over and over again. So if you're performing adequately on a contract, the government will not want to go through the whole RFP, RFQ process over and over again. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of money. And if the government can just consistently award you contracts, they will, as long as you perform on them consistently and no one undercuts your bid severely. And as long as you keep your expectations realistic, you can't expect, oh, inflation rate was 3%, I will raise my prices by 10%. It's going back to an RFQ at that point. But basically, you can see the dollar amounts here, that like the smaller contracts require less legwork and paperwork on your part. The important thing is that you must be able to sustain your business through this process. Like if I submit an invoice, I might not be paid for up to 90 days or sometimes even longer. And you'll need to cover your expenses in that time. So being financially healthy is important for your business. So in the interest of time, next slide, please. Just some tips for success here. Be realistic about what you're able to perform. Be realistic about your capacity. Don't bid on a contract that might be too big for you and then worry about the execution later. Like, no, you have to think about the execution during the process. Don't bite off more than you can chew. It's okay to start small. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good practice. And also you'll have to be patient. You know, your odds are you're not going to win the first contract you bid on. Your odds are you won't win the 10th contract you bid on. And it could be any reason. And what you'll want to do is you always want to request a debriefing. And a lot of times a contracting officer, they'll tell you why you weren't awarded the contract. And, you know, some of them are more open than others to just discussing openly with you. So if you can find a contracting officer like that, you'll always want to open a dialogue with them and take any opportunity to open a dialogue with the contracting officer. There's usually a time period on bids where a contracting officer is open to answering questions. And that's a very good time to ask an intelligent question and establish dialogue with contracting officer. Getting back to that networking opportunity and, you know, just the last couple of points here. You know, if it's too much for you, think about limiting your marketing efforts to specific agencies who are making large purchases in your NAICS codes or in your product service codes, and tailor that capability statement to what they would be looking for in order to work with you. So in the interest of time, I just wanted to go ahead and open it up to any questions that you guys have. Hopefully I answered some along the way. Hopefully you found it informative. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Real happy to be here.
Josh, we really appreciate the time that you folks have given us. You mentioned a couple of things that are coming up that PTAC is doing toward the end of the month of March. Please make sure that you and or Dominique send us that information. We'd be happy to post that and send that out to our members, because that's going to be really important. And that's wonderful. And I think what, you know, a number of different things that we've learned today are the opportunities that are really out there, you know, from a government contracting perspective across the board. Certainly there are some necessities. You have to have some paperwork that's all buttoned up, and we understand that, okay, and our members understand that. Your business has to have been in business for a couple of years, and it's already sustainable. So therefore, you know, getting one of these contracts is not going to be what you're going to, you know, be hanging on. It's in addition to, and that's wonderful. And then the third piece is, you know, the opportunities that are out there to work with PTAC, you know, to really not only get your hands around the opportunities, but secure them is just, it's terrific. I mean, it really, really is terrific. We will be having, folks, as I mentioned before, Josh and company at PTAC will be doing two specific contracting with government workshops coming up. I believe one is in, Jael, help me out here. One is in May and one is in June. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, okay. So they will be on our website, and we will send out plenty of information, folks, because we want like a couple of 100,000 people on that, because it's all about the money. It's sitting there, it's collecting dust. When I see money collecting dust, I get really nudgy, because I want some of that for the, you know, for the chamber and for our people. So yes, Cecilia, you can definitely have Josh's contact information. I'll make sure that we get that to you. Josh, before we hop off and I say goodbye, why don't you tell people how to get in touch with you?
I will put my email in the chat.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that right now. While you're doing that, let me thank everybody who took the time today. Let me thank La Mega, who is our proud sponsor of our Resolve It in 30. Don't forget, folks, they want to work with you. They have customized packages for our members. It starts as little as $350 a week. So please, just make sure that you call them. Also, remember, we have a lot happening. Check our website. There's a bunch of stuff that's coming up that you really, as members or even as non-members, want to be involved with, because we have a number of signature events happening. We also have a number of different other things that are posted on the website. And again, should you need anything, please let us know. And at that point, Josh, you want to say goodbye?
I do. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's been wonderful to be here. Hopefully you learned something, and hopefully if you think the PTAC can benefit you, I can send me an email and I'll show you how to sign up to be a client. It's free. You've paid your taxes last year. You already paid us to help you. And if you didn't pay your taxes last year, we're not going to ask. So, all
right, Josh. Listen, we thank you again for your time and consideration. Thank you, PTAC, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Have a great weekend and be safe.